Hey Dreamers, welcome back to another episode of Carried Away the Conversation. You're here with your host, Ashley. This podcast is dedicated to the intersections between life and literature, and I can't wait to get into this episode with you. Hello Dreamers, welcome back to another episode of Carried Away the Conversation. You are joined today with Ashley and Charlotte Paradise. Hi Charlotte.
Hi, Ashley. It's so nice to be here with you.
Yeah, we are talking about Overspill today, and this book, oh my god, Charlotte. This was beautiful. This was stunning.
Thank you.
I was doing my internet girly things, and I came across an author that I knew personally and then knew professionally, and she was raving about this book, and I was like, oh, wait, hold on. Charlotte looks like one of the girlies. Let's reach out. So, first of all, thank you for this piece of literature. That was stunning.
I'm glad you liked it. The emotional roller coaster that it is.
I think it's just so fitting for, well, this episode is coming out during Women's Month. And I think there are so many aspects of womanhood that just kind of get brushed under the rug because they're not pretty enough or they're too violent or visceral. And I appreciate this book because, you look at the not pretty sides of womanhood. Yeah. And you make it beautiful. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Let's get into it. So we have our leading question. Charlotte, could you tell us about Charlotte, the author, the writer, and the reader?
Yeah. So I'm Charlotte. I am a physically disabled and chronically ill author and screenwriter, and I live near London in the UK. And I love, unsurprisingly, literary fiction. That's mostly what I read, literary fiction and then literary historical fiction. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to historical fiction and period dramas, like big into Jane Austen adaptations and have a fascination with the 19th century. So that's me. The other things to know about me are I'm vegan and I love food intensely. And in my downtime, and I have a lot of rest time because of my chronic illnesses and them being energy limiting conditions, I cross stitch, which is the granniest of granny hobbies, but I cross stitch my favorite film scenes. So I'm mixing my love of cinema and writing films with some kind of way to pass the time when I'm resting. Yeah, that's me.
That's you. I love that. I love a little granny hobby. And then when it bleeds in over to like professionalism, I love that. Yeah. Okay, so into Overspill, the book that we are all loving to talk about today. Overspill is such a visceral title. I had to sit with the title for a bit and be like, Overspill, what does that mean? What is it? What is it? What does it mean? It's a paradox, yeah. When did you know that this was the right name for the book?
So we went on a little bit of a journey with the title Overspill. For the first 2 or 3 drafts, which spanned a good couple of years, it was a different title, which I don't know if I've ever actually really said this publicly, but it was, so inside scoop.
Yay.
It was called The Grief of Knowing, which I think is a great title for the last third or the last quarter of the book, but doesn't necessarily work for the whole novel. So I was having conversations with my editor about what might be best, and we were throwing ideas at each other, and she picked out the word overspill, which is actually something that Sarah says in a therapy session. So one of her therapists, because she has multiple ones, asks her what meaning she makes of a symptom that she started to have, which is twitching, and she calls it overspill. And I just thought, it was an immediate, something about that actually really works.
Yeah.
And I think it is a title that you have to sit with a little bit because it doesn't necessarily make sense. But I quite like a title that doesn't make sense until it makes sense, on the page.
Sense. Yeah.
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 Sometimes I think it's a little bit cringe. This is hypocritical of me, but I think it can feel a bit cringe when the title is said in the book
Mm-hmm.
because it takes you out of it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it can help be a little bit less cringe when it adds meaning.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was hoping for.
Yeah. This is kind of like the literary version of breaking the fourth wall a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, you're like, oh, and you're reading a book, but it's the
Yeah.
title.
Hello. Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, are there books that say their title in the book pages? I'm looking at my shelf and thinking, like, are there books over there that do that? I don't think so.
I see it a lot
Yeah?
when I'm reading and I go, oh, there's the title.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I just haven't noticed. I'm gonna start noticing now.
It's one of those things, it's like that theory when you learn about a car brand and suddenly you see that car everywhere, but you'd never seen it before.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, I can't wait. I'm going on a little scavenger hunt.
Yeah, exciting. Can't wait to hear back.
I'll report back next episode, guys.
Yeah.
um. Yeah. I just read East of Eden. Now I'm thinking, they do say East of Eden in the book?
I
Okay.
really want to read East of Eden because there's an adaptation coming out and I've never read it before. So it's like high on my list.
I did not know there was an adaptation coming out. Is there?
Florence Pugh's in it.
Fucking hell. Really?
Mm-hmm.
The more you know.
Yeah. There you go.
At the top of this year, I had like the traumas kept persisting. And I was like having the worst reading slump. And so I thought, maybe I go back to the books I read as a child that I fell in love with and, fall in love with reading again by revisiting my old self. And East of Eden was one of those books I read when I was like 14, maybe 13. I was a child.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it worked. I was worried you were going to say it didn't work.
No, it worked. It worked. It worked. It worked. I read East of Eden, Tender is the Flesh. I read that a few years ago, but I love that book so much. Charlotte. Okay,
I know.
Stop the recording. We're going back. We're starting a book club right
Cut
now.
the podcast. Charlotte's just going to go and read Tender is the Flesh immediately.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's gory and it's violent and it brings me a different type of joy that is probably problematic because it's about eating people. But it's fun. What is another one? I read something else. I forgot. How do you usually describe Overspill to readers who are encountering it for the first time?
So the quickest way to describe it is probably what I said at the beginning of this podcast, which is emotional roller coaster. But more officially, I guess I say that it's literary fiction, contemporary literary fiction about an optician in her 20s who is learning to love with a trauma history.
Mm-hmm.
So she has a panic attack trying to use a tampon on the same day as a first date with a guy called Miles, which goes surprisingly well. And that kind of launches her into the struggle and the journey of discovering if you can have romance and love when touch triggers you. It is heartbreaking, but also, I hope, heart-mending in some ways. I've been left speechless on many an occasion when someone has said to me that it saw them and it changed their lives, and it also helps people understand maybe what they've been through with their experiences of CPTSD, whether that's a very similar experience to Sarah or not. Yeah, there's a lot of yearning and a lot of very important conversations, and that's Overspill.
Yeah. I think when I first picked it up, the first scene, or you're very quickly put into Sarah's life. Like the tampon scene is pretty much like the first chapter or the first couple pages.
Yeah, there's no messing around. We're straight in there.
Messing. Yeah. And I was like, I love this. I appreciate this. Like, of course, I appreciate when stories take time to build where their characters are, but you meet Sarah exactly where she is in that moment, and you're just like, okay, we're in. We're good. We're starting here. And I really, really appreciated that.
I think that some people might expect that a panic attack or something, a moment that is extremely difficult and highly charged, as that scene of a panic attack using a tampon may come later in the story as a kind of high conflict moment, or like a end of the second act kind of thing. But for Sarah and her story, that's the beginning.
That's the beginning. Yeah.
That's the beginning, and it is harsh and it is quick.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it does tell you quite quickly that this isn't going to be a book that's going to hold back.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. What was the earliest seed of this story? Like, when did you get started? Was it an image? Was it a question? A feeling? I think you said earlier that it was a draft for 2 years or so? Or 2 or 3
Yeah,
years?
so I started writing it 6 years ago. Yeah, the beginning of 2020. So it's been quite a long journey.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard to say, well, I find it hard to answer this question of there being a clear moment where I knew what I was going to write about, because the process of writing this book hasn't been that clear the whole way. Usually it's an image that starts something off for me, but I don't know whether it's because I started writing it 6 years ago or whether it's because it doesn't have one, a clear seed for the story. But there is a very clear moment when I decided to write it. So Overspill is actually the first novel that I'd ever written. I'd written short stories and short films and feature films before, but never written a novel. And I went to see Greta Gerwig's Little Women in the cinema for Christmas 2019. And I came out of that film crying. I remember it so clearly, walking out of the cinema crying and saying to myself, I'm going to write that book I've always dreamt of writing. That's the clear moment of I'm going to do this, but I don't have a clear moment of I'm going to write this specific story. That just kind of happened. And then I had to figure out over years what exactly it was that I was trying to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful story. Love when I hear when people have these like kind of pandemic babies, and they're and they're not actual children, but they're works of art. Yeah, and I think we were all just so inspired during that time, and deeply depressed. At least I was deeply depressed, but somehow in that winter of life, we were able to pop out.
Yeah.
Right?
I had, so I started writing it that January 2020, which was a good 2-3 months before
Yeah.
the pandemic hit. But then when it did, I already had like a purpose or something that I was really working towards, which helped me focus. But I only continued to write it for about 3 months into the pandemic, and then it all got too much. The subject matter and what was happening in the world, what was happening in my personal life. And I actually took a 13-month break from the book. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the moment after the 13-month? I guess that you decided to go back to it. Like, did something
I
happen?
saw a call out. I saw a call out for underrepresented, unagented writers. A new imprint of HarperCollins was being set up, and they were looking for stories. And I was like, it's me and it's time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it. They bought my book before I'd finished writing it, and then I had to write a first draft of the first ever novel that I'd ever written in a contract.
Oh my God.
Which was intense. Yeah,
Yeah.
very intense.
Oh, it's fated mates situation. That's what's happening. You and HarperCollins, fated mates. Okay. The body is central in this novel, both as a site of control and a site of rebellion. What drew you to explore the body in this way? I think I know what you're gonna say, but I'm interested.
Ooh, do you? That makes one of us. No, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by these words, control and rebellion. They send my brain off into 100 different places. Because when I think about control, I think about how Sarah's body is controlling her desire, but also how she controls it. So how she controls both her body and her desire. And then rebellion is maybe even more fascinating, because to me, I understand it as like resisting control and also resisting convention. And I think that Sarah's body yearns to resist the control that trauma has on her life, and also the control that she is implementing in her life. But she can't quite. And I guess the journey of Overspill is her trying to rebel, but also trying to have control.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that they're not opposites of each other, and that they actually work together a lot. And we were just talking about what the seed of the story was. I think maybe unconsciously there was a question for me that was maybe part of that seed, which is, can a body control and rebel at the same time?
Yeah.
And I think as a physically disabled and chronically ill person, I'm constantly aware of my body. So it makes sense that I was drawn to write about the body. But when you ask the question, why was I drawn to write about the body specifically when it comes to control and rebellion? I think it's that constant awareness of, how does my body and my symptoms control my life with its limitations? But also, how do I control my environment for my body? And at the moment, I've been thinking of when does it serve me and when does it not serve me to control those things? And how far am I taking that control? And is that healthy for me? And how can I adapt? It's constantly a conversation about how can I adapt my environment and my situation to help my body. And then it makes me ask the question, are my symptoms my body rebelling against me? I think sometimes I feel that way and it's very frustrating. But what if they're rebelling for me? Because a lot of the time, what our body is doing gives us information, which is helpful. I'm answering your question with a lot of questions, but I think that's kind of the answer to your question, or the why did I decide to do this? Because there are so many questions that come up from this one question about bodies and control and rebellion and resistance. And I think that's probably why I told this story about Sarah, because there's so much wrestling to be done when it comes to these conversations about body and autonomy and what it means to live in a body that doesn't do what you want it to do. And whilst my experiences of my connective tissue disorder is different in some ways to what Sarah is going through, there is that overlap of those unanswerable existential questions that come up all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that what you thought I was going to answer?
Part of it.
Okay, because I'm really interested to hear what you thought I might be thinking.
Part. Don't give me too much credit. When I was coming up with the question, I thought, as someone who lives with chronic illness, is it a battle for you as well that you wanted to, what is the word I'm looking for? To kind of analyze through Sarah? I feel like when writers create such visceral pieces of literature, it's a dialogue mostly that they're having with themselves, and the reader gets to have this privileged position of watching this story unfold, or this conversation unfold. And so I thought your answer would tie back into your personal journey with your body. But what I was not anticipating was the mental aspect of it, or your mind, I think, is not necessarily at least my mind is always rebelling against the control I want to have over it. I would like for my thoughts to go a certain way, and then they don't. And then from your answer just now, I was like, oh, this question should have been broader about it to include the mind as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so
interesting. Am I
interesting.
going on a mental tangent?
No, it definitely makes sense.
Okay, good. Yeah, maybe I need to write a book to have that much needed conversation with myself.
Maybe you do. Yeah, people on books potentially being the writer having a conversation with themselves. People ask me, why do you write? Why are you a writer? My answer is usually because I have to. It is a processing tool for me. I feel like it is such a staple in my life. And if I don't do it, because I'm not able to, because I'm busy or because I'm unwell, I feel the frustration of I think it's probably how people feel like when they haven't exercised in a while and they need like that out. I need to move.
Yeah.
I feel like I have that with writing. I need to, it is a processing tool for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that answer. How did you balance the physical intensity of the book with its emotional interiority?
Okay, well, here's the mind.
Yeah, here's the mind. Full
Here's
circle.
the body versus the mind,
Yeah.
how they spur each other on and how they argue with each other and how. But I think we like to do this thing, and we can see it in our medical system, the way that we like segregate it. We split them, body and mind. What is the mind but muscle and
Yeah.
blood and nerves? Body and mind are not separate. They are literally the same thing. Your mind is part of your body. And I think we love to separate them. But why? I think the heart of Overspill is about how what we've been through and how we feel manifests itself physically for us. And like I said, Sarah gets so much information from her body even before her mind gives it to her. She gets information about her mind and her memories in her physical reactions to things before she's even been able to think about it. And when I became chronically ill 11 years ago, I had a lot of people, a lot of doctors gaslight me when I would explain my physical symptoms or the fact that I had been bedbound for however many months. There was kind of this like in your head, like quote, in your head vibe to what they were saying and like their accusations. And it forced me to be like, it's not in my head. It's not a mental health problem. I'm physically unwell. My physical symptoms are real. But I was always really conscious that I never wanted to dismiss mental health in that conversation. They were doing that thing that we do where we make us choose between body and mind. But I was like, I feel depressed because I have these physical symptoms. So I didn't want to just be like, no, it's my body. It's not just in my head. Just in my head is like, it like dismisses mental health. Like something being in your head would just be in your head. Whereas if you were experiencing mental health symptoms, you know, and like I said, mind and body are so linked. A lot of symptoms of complex PTSD, which, you know, Sarah is kind of having a conversation about whether that diagnosis fits her, it is so physical. So I think when it comes to the balance of the physical intensity of the book with the emotional interiority, that came quite naturally to me. How they like weave in and around each other, how sometimes they meet, how they feed each other. They're not separate to me, so I didn't feel like I had to do much hard work or restructuring in redrafts and things like that when it came to how they played with each other, because I just think that's the natural part of life and also the experience of complex PTSD and having been through something that was very traumatizing and how it's showing up. For her, it shows up very physically in her inability to have sex and her aversion to touch, the physical like stiffening she has when it comes to those things and the fear around it, despite the fact that she wants to be able to have that intimacy with Miles. She's very painfully in her head, is Sarah.
Yeah.
But also physically painfully in her body as well.
In her body.
And the two are just completely inseparable, I think.
Yeah. You know, there's this, people always say, oh, don't think with your heart or don't think with your head or like, or think with your head. Yeah. And while you're speaking now, I'm like, what if we already naturally think with our body parts? Like, when I'm having an anxiety attack, that's something I struggle with daily. I feel it before I know it. Like it's a very gut thing. Or, you know, I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday and I felt like it was about to trigger anxiety. Or I thought it could, but then I had to think like, oh, does your chest hurt right now? Is that stampede of elephants that come around whenever you're about to go into a panic, is it there right now? Oh, it's not there. Okay, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be then. So
yeah, it's a constant conversation between what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and sometimes one comes before the other. And like I said, the physical often comes before the mind, but you just explained a situation in which you thought it, and sometimes that can then trigger it. Yeah. It's a funny thing. And then you say, like, it's so part of our language, the way that we use words to talk about, you know, do I choose my head or my heart? I love a bit of reality TV. That's a confession of mine. Love a bit of Love is Blind. And
Love is Blind.
Often do this thing where they're like, you know, I don't know whether to choose my heart or choose my head.
Mm-hmm.
But also another phrase that we come back to a lot is, like you said, gut, or what's your gut feeling about it? To me, my gut is almost my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's actually where a lot of thinking happens. It's not really thinking, yes. It's feeling, but it's
feeling.
That's the place immediately that it's happening. Yeah.
I 1000% agree. I think my gut knows the truth and my brain processes it. I think
that's exactly how I feel, I think, as well.
Yeah. Okay. Same page.
Yeah, that was a great line. I love that.
So I want to sit with that for a second. Were there moments where you worried about going too far, or did you give yourself permission to like follow yourself down the discomfort?
As I said before, it was a tough writing process because of the subject matter. And I had to take that 13-month break. So sometimes the permission I had to give myself was to not do it. But too far is very interesting to me. I think because, like, this word too, the way that women are socialized and the way that shame is perpetuated, too much, too loud, not enough. There's a line that I'm remembering now in Overspill, I think in an early chapter, where she's lying on her bed and she is thinking about her thighs, and she says that her thighs are too thick and too small at the same time. And it's the perfect example of how too is so embedded in our experiences of womanhood.
Yeah.
And what we're told to believe about ourselves. But yeah, unsurprisingly, the things that cause us trauma and the moments and the experiences we have that cause us trauma are excruciatingly uncomfortable. And so to look at them is very difficult. And so, yes, I was worried that specifically the moment where we uncover the heart, or the heat, as I call it, of Sarah's trauma would be too confronting or too agonizing on paper or too far. But the thing that helped me get over that was flipping the script, because it is always, or almost always, the survivor speaking or the survivor acting that is considered the thing that is going too far, or the information given is too much. But it's the abuse that's too far, and it's the silence that survivors are told to adopt that is too far. And it's too far and not enough when it comes to justice and the lack of justice that happens around abuse. And every time I felt that I was being held back from really going there in writing the book and what happens to Sarah, it felt a lot like kind of internalized rape culture narrative, where I was having to silence her to make everything feel comfortable. And that is exactly why I wanted to write this book, because I was sick of seeing survivors being shamed. And shame breeds in the dark, which is why people these experiences to stay secret. And I wanted, as painful as it was and as too far as it felt to put these things on paper, I wanted to expose it and bring in some light and some air and to stop some of that breeding of shame. There's a moment in the book where Sarah says, after wrestling with what happened to her and believing what happened to her, she knows in her gut, like it comes from her gut. She says, the truth is the truth is the truth is the truth. And the truth is that the truth is the truth is the truth. And that truth is that what is going too far is not survivors talking about what happened. It's them not being allowed to. A main concern, a worry that I had that I will stand by and that I didn't talk myself out of was I was worried about triggering readers who had had similar experiences. That was my main concern, I think, with going, quote, too far, or with being very blunt on the page, which is why I think it could potentially be quite easy to talk about or market this book as being a kind of, and I have compared it to Sally Rooney before. And I think that a lot of the relationship between Sarah and Miles and their miscommunication does have that kind of a vibe. But not talking about the trauma and the fact that we're having very frank, honest, and open conversations about complex PTSD and trauma history. It's important to mention those things up front, because I think that there are probably some people who would find it difficult to read and who need to have things like trigger warnings. So yeah, there was that side of worrying about going to,
Yeah. I have two trains of thoughts right now. The first train of thought, when you mentioned the word "to," or I mentioned the word "to," and then we volleyed back and forth a bit. I do feel like we have these accessory words that I'm not sure what the grammatical term is, but it's almost like the term "just." It's just in your head. It's too much. I don't know. Are there not prepositions? What are they?
I'm terrible with grammar names. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have no idea what they're called.
No, I don't. But they have a way of minimizing what was already excessive or maximizing what should have been minimal, I guess. And they're so often used with women and how women process the shit that happens to them. Like, you're going too far, and he only just did this. Like, these words.
They are so ingrained in our language that the way that we treat women and minimize women's experiences and survivors' experiences it's right there in the way that we talk about it.
Yeah.
There isn't escaping it. I think a lot of us like to think, I'm a feminist and these are my morals and that's a very big part of my life. And so I would never. But we do. We have to catch ourselves doing it all the time. Especially, I think, the way that we talk about ourselves. There are ways that we would never dare to talk about our best friend or our mum or our sister. But the way that we talk about ourselves in our heads even is in this, you're being an idiot again. Or you've put too much makeup on. Or you're not wearing enough makeup today.
Yeah.
It's constant, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm very curious what the word, I think I use just a lot. Like, oh, it's just this. Even when I'm explaining my anxiety to someone, I'm like, oh, I just wanted to know. I could have said, I want to know. Why do I need to add just? It's such a frivolous word that means so much.
Yeah, you're minimizing.
Yeah.
You're minimizing your experience of anxiety, which is exactly Sarah's experience in the book.
Yeah.
Is about trying to face the fact that that's what she is doing and repressing it. And part of that repression can be in the way that we talk about things. Oh, it's just this. Oh, it's just that. I don't want to look at it. It's just this happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, as someone who's had a lot of trauma in the past as well, the reason why I was able to relate so heavily to this book, not in like you see my experience, but it was a trust thing. I think because you started the book with so, like, trust was established immediately. And I think you did that through, like, how do I say this? Words, Ashley. Use your words. Because you showed Zara exactly where she was, and you trusted the reader enough to, use language that wasn't pretty, and that was just the truth. And so for me as a reader who was coming in with like my own traumatic baggage or whatever, it felt honest. And I think most times people who have dealt with trauma just want honesty, and they want someone not just to see, but
to say
to understand, to say it, to say it.
This is the thing. We're told it's just this, so you don't need to bother talking about it, and it's also too difficult for me to hear about it, so don't talk about it. So we're encouraged to be very quiet about everything.
Exactly.
To not use our words, to not say things out loud. And this book says it. I
Yeah,
think
it's
I've done readings of the first chapter. And I have to admit, like, I've had to get over feelings of like, am I really going to say those words? Because here I am being like, can I say these words on this
yeah,
podcast? Having the words vagina and vulva and the fact that they are separate parts of an anatomy rather than just vagina is all of it, which it's not, in the
mhm,
first chapter of a book is honest and it's out there. To me, a part of me is like the fact that that is a slightly crazy thing to do and that that's someone being very honest and saying things that aren't said is wild to me. Like, these are just like very anatomical
yeah.
words, you
They're
know?
just the facts.
But if
They're the
that's
facts.
honest and that's what it takes to be honest, then let's do it and let's say them.
Yeah.
I
This novel engages with systems of medical, social, and patriarchal that claim to know what's best for women's bodies. What questions were you most interested in asking?
Charlotte stares into space. I think a lot of what we've talked about already is silence. Why are we silent about certain things and why do we have to be? I also think that there's a very interesting thing happening when it comes to young people's behavior around sex and a rise in abstinence, whether that is a decision that people are making or whether it's something that society is kind of unconsciously having an effect on us with. But in terms of patriarchy, this question of how a rise in sexism and violence against women being an epidemic is affecting women's choices when it comes to who they have sex with and when and whether they do. A situation that happened with a Bumble dating app campaign. I don't know if you saw it, but they did a whole rebrand and their advert was about a woman who chooses to go to a convent and become a nun and choose celibacy. They, the dating app comes in and basically shakes things up and it's like, you don't need to choose, you don't need to be celibate or abstinent, basically. There was a lot of conversation about it because I think it was an advert that targeted America,
Okay.
and specifically in America with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and there being a lot of dangerous changes being made when it comes to women's safety and their health. A lot of women are deciding, not necessarily because they want to not have sex, but to not have sex because of the political, patriarchal situation that they're in. And needless to say, the Bumble ad did not last long. It was taken down quite quickly. But then you had Julia Fox coming out saying, I'm abstinent, I'm celibate, I'm not having sex. And there just seems to be a rise in it and a rise in conversations around it. And I think it's a really interesting thing to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a society that tells us that, again, with the word too, if you have, quote, too much sex, you're a slut. And if you have too little sex or no sex, then you're a prude. All these this very shameful language around women and how sexually active they are. And what does that look like now? Things are changing. Are we reclaiming our bodies and our role in society by saying we can date without having sex, which is what Sarah does, even though she's someone who wants to be able to but can't? Or is that just another product of patriarchal laws?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one of the questions that I think I'm playing with this book, or conversations that I think have come up because of it that I find really interesting.
So interesting the word reclaim because I'm having Ashley stares off into the distance now. It means that, at least how I'm interpreting the word, is there was a conscious moment where we gave something else power. And so the act of reclamation is getting the power back. But I'm wondering now, was what is the word I'm looking for? I love Mondays. They're wonderful. Was there like a moment where we did give power, or we did give up the power. We said, you may have this now, and that's causing us to reclaim it? Or was there never a moment that, we gave power and now we are, what's the word? Now we're living in our own bodies and not necessarily taking back, but just living in the truth. Like, there are moments I have in my life where, sometimes I don't feel like having sex. But then there are times when I do feel like having a lot of sex. And I'm thinking, well, when I didn't want to have sex, I didn't really give that power up to someone else. It's just something I wanted to do, or I didn't want to do for myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is consent. This is
Yeah.
consent. We all have times where, well, not all of us. Some of us have times, like you said, where you want to be sexually active, and sometimes you have times when you don't. Sometimes you can be wanting that, and it begins, and you decide, I don't want it anymore,
I don't
and
want
that's where
anymore.
it should end.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are situations in which that consent is not given.
Yeah. And then I'm also thinking with myself, though, or with there are moments when I'm having a lot of, like, oh, I don't feel like having sex. And then I feel guilty about it for some reason. Because, like, no, Ashley, you're allowed, like, you're a sexually positive person. Like, you should. Like, this is how, should is a big word. But this is how you express. You can express your body and your desires. But then I have this inner dialogue that I should probably put on a page at some point about, yeah, am I rebelling against what I should want? I don't know. Huh.
Should is the key word there.
Should is a key word. Yeah.
Should is the key word. It's so nuanced. It's such a nuanced conversation, and it completely depends on the person
Mm-hmm.
and where you're at and what your ideas and inbuilt beliefs are around the shoulds.
Yeah. Yeah. Sex is a much larger conversation. uh, I don't think I have the mental bandwidth to deal with right in this second. That's crazy. I think we've already touched on this question, but maybe just to revisit a bit. Do you see Overspill as a story about containment or about excess, or both? And now that we've had this conversation, I kind of sort of hate this question because
Containment and excess is similar to control
and rebellion.
and rebellion.
It's similar to two and just. Ooh.
Excess is an interesting one. Yeah, exactly, because I think it's got that too shame attached to it. Like having too much sex makes you, quote, a slut.
Yeah.
People love to ask the question as like a small talk thing. I hate small talk, but this one really gets on my nerves. What's your guilty pleasure?
Yeah.
And I have seen a couple of, like, celebrities get asked this question on red carpets all the time, and I have seen some people give an answer that I actually really respect, which is, why is any pleasure guilty? Obviously, if you are crossing boundaries, if it is non-consensual, if it breaks a law, sure, let's talk about you being guilty for exploring your pleasure. But when it comes to a small talk question of, like, what's your guilty pleasure, a lot of people like put things like pop music and reality TV. I talked about reality TV earlier, and I did say, I may have said guilty pleasure, I can't quite remember, but I definitely did say something like, oh, I've got a confession to make, I love reality TV. So reality TV is in that too. But, like, why things that are ingrained in our language that are shaming, why are we talking about things that bring us pleasure as being guilty? It reminds me of that excess question. I think that Miles, specifically as a character who is navigating and repressing and trying not to look at, but eventually has to look at, the fact that he has his own sexual trauma or his own control around sexual desire because of being brought up in a religious context. He's maybe someone who is thinking about these words containment and excess, because I think to him there is unconscious belief that to have sex goes against purity culture and therefore is excess or a pleasure to feel guilty about. I think that potentially he may not know this, and this may be something that his therapist would bring up if he were ever to have therapy, like 5 years later after the book ends, that they might say, oh, you know, Mars, it's quite interesting. You chose to be in a relationship with someone who couldn't have sex. Was that an unconscious part of you containing what you believed to be shamefully excessive, which was just sexual desire, and you were allowed to experience sexual desire and to enact it in consensual ways? I think that the tension between containment and excess, and again, control and rebellion or resistance, is something that is the knot between Sarah and Miles. Is maybe their issue is that they control and refuse each other, and that they're trying to find a rhythm, but that their need to contain and their fear of being excessive in how they feel or what they want is meaning that they can't find the rhythm with each other. And the book is asking the question, how maybe can you overcome those things or not overcome them in order to make it work? And I'm not going to say whether they do or whether they don't, because you have to read the book to find out.
You have to read the book. It's a great book. I think everyone should read this book. Everyone. How much of this book was about control and how much was it about refusal? And I want to caveat this. I don't like the term refusal because as we're talking about honesty and how this book is just such a testament to being true to the facts, to your gut, to, you know, the truth. And refusal feels like, it feels like a denial of what should be expressed. But there's the question. Feel free to answer it.
I think it depends on what you mean by refusal. If you mean Sarah refusing physical touch, then it's interesting because it's not that straightforward. And also it has, as we've said, that kind of subtext of refusing, no, maybe this is just something that's bringing up for me, or that is baked into it. That a woman refusing something inherently feels like she's doing something wrong, because I think that the social script is that a woman shouldn't refuse. It's the same thing with being assertive. The whole point of this story, the whole journey, is about a woman finding her voice. Sarah finds her voice. And part of that is in learning to have, I heard this great thing, which is that sometimes the first step in trauma recovery and in reclaiming your body and your experience from trauma or growing around it, sometimes the first step is to learn to have a consensual relationship with yourself. And so much of Sarah's journey is learning to have a consensual relationship with herself. And part of that is starting with, I want and I don't want, and I will not accept, and I will not, and you will not. This assertive way of talking, when it comes to women, that is seen as dominant. I heard Kate Winslet say something recently in an interview, which was really great, was she had to relearn what ambitious meant. Because when men are described as ambitious, it's like they're go-getters and they are motivated and they do amazing things, these amazing businessmen and people who get things done. When a woman is described as ambitious, she's like, she's ambitious. Oh, the too much thing. Too ambitious, too assertive. But actually, why is it that a woman refusing something is such a big deal, is such a big stand that she's taking, is potentially her doing something wrong? This is what perpetuates non-consensual sexual experiences. Because if a woman is going to be too much or do something wrong by saying no or saying I want something else, then we just continue the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's what you meant when you said refusal.
Great question.
To turn it around, I like to think of it as her let's use it in a different way. This is a story about a woman who has been through so much, including so much control, and yet she refuses to allow her trauma to dictate whether she can experience love or not.
Yeah.
So she takes back control. So actually, like, the words control and refusal together bring up another word for me, which is empowerment, which might
Mm-hmm.
seem like a strange word to come to. But I think that there is so much personal power that can be gained from finding enough voice to assertively control with healthy boundaries, to say, I want this and I don't want this, and refusing to adhere to harmful patterns and to allow shame to run your life. I think control and refusal together in healthy ways can be very beneficial and very empowering. And that's Sarah's journey, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. You made me re-like the question.
This is the thing about words, and this is, unsurprisingly, as an author, screenwriter, reader, I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with words.
Yeah.
And even to the point of what words we use in conversations with people, or what words we use to talk to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
which we've spoken about. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by unpicking what we mean by using a certain word. There's so much information in that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that was really fun about writing Sarah and Mars's relationship, because they get tied up in what words they're using. And I think sometimes she uses words that he has a different understanding of because of his experiences, and because also the difference in their genders and how they were socialized. And also she thinks she's saying things she's not. I think there's one moment where her best friend Angie says, I just think you're so much more emotionally articulate than you are. You think you're saying words, but you're not saying them. And is that not an experience so many of us have?
Yeah.
Like, how amazing to have a friend who would call you out on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I did really, really love Angie as well.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah, she's a great character. Yeah. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Okay, this is another question I cannot wait to extrapolate what I meant. But Zara often feels caught between compliance and resistance. Again, with the what is my obsession with duology of things? How do you think about the agents? How did you think about her agency while writing?
Her agency while writing this was everything. There was no way to write this book without thinking about her agency. In fact, it's the whole plot of the book. So, on resistance and compliance, in this book, and I think in society in general, there are signals of compliance everywhere.
Yes.
And in Sarah's situation of being someone with vaginismus who is struggling to have physical intimacy with her boyfriend, I think one of the ways that would show up would be people saying things like, just relax, you'll be fine, you'll have a couple of glasses of wine, get into bed together, and it'll be okay. That's just another form of compliance, a signal of it in our society. And it's the kind of thing that people say to people with vaginismus all the time. But I think that she has to resist the compliance in order to find her agency. And yeah, that agency is the whole plot. So I thought about it a lot, especially when structuring it. When she has agency, when she thinks she has agency, when she truly has it.
Mm-hmm.
How much of it does she have?
Yeah. How did you want to protect her throughout? Because there are times when I think she was battling with her own agency and like, could she take it as her creator? How did you want to protect her in her own exploration?
I wanted to protect her constantly, all the time. Even publishing the book felt like it was scary. Like I wanted to shield her from the world, and in publishing her, I kind of went against that. I had to remind myself that yes, exposure can be uncomfortable, but that actually that is part of letting the light and the air in, like I was talking about earlier, like into the shame and dispersing some of that shame. I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase. I think it's to do with a mouse. I may just be making this up. Either way, it might work. It might work or it might not work. Have you heard the thing of like, when you hold something you love too tightly, it kills it?
Yes.
I might be mixing up the metaphor of when I was learning to play piano when I was like 7. and you had to put your hand specifically like bridge because they would say that there's a mouse under there. I may be mixing that metaphor with this metaphor of holding, but for some reason I see a mouse. Like if I were to love the mouse that I was holding so intensely, I would suffocate the mouse.
Did you read Of Mice and Men?
Okay, yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Lenny's coming to mind.
Light bulb. Yeah, it's Lenny. I'm talking about Lenny, guys.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There was somewhere in the recesses of my mind, there was Lenny. Right, the Lenny effect, let's call it that. I didn't want to do that with Sarah, although I was tempted to protect her so much that it'd probably smother her and that no one would ever see it. Or you talked about the word honest. I really wanted this book to be honest, and I don't think it was honest to protect her. But one practical way was in redrafts, thanks to notes from my editor, I had to make her more flawed. I had to make her, quote, less likable. I had to make her messier, less of a good friend, less of a good partner. I think in early drafts, she was just kind of great. She communicated everything. She was very therapized before she was therapized. And I needed her, like I said before, to like be someone who thinks she's articulate but isn't.
Yeah. The ideal trauma survivor.
Yeah. I think I was doing that. You said very, very early on in this conversation about the prettiness of womanhood. We have this instinct to barbify, maybe.
Yes.
The barbification of women.
Yes.
To make things pink and sparkly and lovely and shiny and presentable. It's all about being presentable. And Sarah in early drafts was very presentable because I was protecting her. I didn't want anyone to think. I think I was getting ahead of all of the stereotypes that are thrown at survivors. The what were you wearing?
Yeah.
And in protecting her from that, I just made her too much of a saint, too perfect. It wasn't interesting, it wasn't honest, and it was also on like a craft level, it was holding back the tension and the conflict, which a novel needs to sustain itself. But yeah, that instinct to protect her was there, and it was there strongly.
Yeah, I get that. You know, to harken back to the earlier part of this conversation, we were talking about beautifying womanhood. Another reason I appreciated opening with the tampon scene was so many, you know, voyeurs of the period experience. They will see it on those tampon commercials on TV and like, oh, you know, women are running around and like playing in like sports in these white tennis suits and whatever, and it looks pretty. Like periods look pretty if you look at these overly produced interpretations of what periods should be. But again, what I really appreciate about opening with the tampon scene is like, periods are not pretty. You know, you wake up and there's a stain somewhere and you're like, what the fuck is that? This pad is sticking to something. What is it sticking to? Do I want it to stick? Like, it takes too much work to unstick it. Like, there's so much happening. Yeah. So, thank you for that.
Isn't it wild that it's only like recently that the first period advert aired that actually like showed like a substance that looked like blood that was red?
Yes.
It was always like blue liquid that they used to
Why
put
was
on
it
these
blue?
pad adverts. Why was it blue? Why was it blue? It is so stupid. And I love now that they have adverts where it looks like blood, and also razor leg shaving adverts and like cream hair removal stuff. Never, they're shaving nothing because there's no hair there. Now I noticed that I saw an advert with hair, and I was like, I'm obsessed with this. This is great. Why are we celebrating this in 2026? Honestly, it's great.
I haven't seen that advert. Please send it to me because I'm like,
okay, I will.
There's nothing there. Yeah, and then they pick the most like translucent blue water to just like, oh, it's a little drop of water. Like, no, it's not a drop of anything. It's this involved.
It speaks to such a huge systemic issue. Like the fact that recently arsenic was found in tampons and that they were never tested with actual blood.
Yeah. What? Oh,
I mean, this we could enter a whole conversation on medical sexism. It's outrageous, honestly.
yeah.
Disgusting.
We'll come back for part two. Okay. Final
Well, I
question
am.
before.
Well, I am writing about medical sexism, so maybe there is a part two. Always.
How do you see this novel in conversation with contemporary works about body and womanhood?
Ooh, find this question hard to answer when it comes to novels. There are some incredible books and works written about womanhood and bodies, and from debuts from my year and going way back to the classics. So it feels quite overwhelming to talk about contemporary works in terms of books, but it's quite a nice opportunity to talk about some of the other media that I think are doing it, that either influence the overspill or like sits alongside it. I was going to say, maybe this is on my mind because I'm seeing her live this week and I literally am beside myself with excitement. But also, I'm always thinking about her because I think she's incredibly talented. But Ray has two songs on her album, My 21st Century Blues, called Ice Cream Man and Body Dysmorphia.
Yes.
And both of them talk about the body, womanhood, and experiences of sexual assault. And the way that that woman expresses her passion and her rage and her belief in her music through her lyrics, and also just the way that she sings and produces, is inspirational. And so those are some of the songs that I listened to get into the project, or that I blast in my headphones and sing along to before I'm going to talk about it, as I did this morning.
Yeah.
And then some films that I think are incredibly important and beautiful are How to Have Sex, The Worst Person in the World, and a film called The Outrun. And all three of those films are about young women, either in their late teens or their 20s, just trying to figure out what it is like and grappling with their past and how it makes them who they are and who they actually want to be, which is really hard, I think, when you're a woman. And as we've talked about, you're told to be smaller constantly.
Yeah.
How do you actually find who you authentically are, and who you want to express yourself and how you want to move through the world? And then TV, Normal People. We're not all obsessed with that show. I feel like that fits alongside
Yeah.
the overspill, will they, won't they, of it all,
Yes.
or will they love us worse kind of situation. And then a TV show that I think is unbelievably underrated that came out last year called Dying for Sex. And
I love that show.
thank you.
Oh my God. But there was no one to talk about it with. Like,
No
I
one.
binged it.
No one
There
to
was no
talk
one.
about it with. Maybe I'm just selfishly bringing this up because I need to talk to more people about it, but it's about a woman who, and look, it's not easy media. It's not easy escapist watch, but it's profound. It's beautiful. It's incredibly produced, and I'm obsessed with it. It's about a woman who is dying of cancer, and her bucket list consists of the fact that she wants to have good sex for the first time in her life. And a way that she can embrace that is by facing sexual trauma from her past. So lots of overlap with Overspill.
Yes.
And it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal on those themes of womanhood and body and sexual expression and physical pain. Perfection.
I need to have a much longer conversation with you about this.
I know we do. We need to go and yap about it.
Because I was like, I watched it and I was like, does anyone else want to watch it? And no, actually, we don't want to watch a woman dying from cancer. But please, it's more than that. Please.
It's so beautiful.
Yes.
Even the dying from cancer bit is so sensitive and hopeful, like strangely hopeful.
Mm-hmm. This is gonna sound okay. I'm gonna say it anyway. I lost my grandmother to breast cancer, and it was the most devastating experience that me and my family have ever been through. And then watching this show made cancer not feel so scary anymore. to the point where like I don't want to say I was looking forward to it. No, no, no. It was like I felt a positive release when she did eventually pass. I was like, oh, we've been waiting for this. Like,
I had
yeah.
exactly the same experience.
Okay,
And
that's not
that
crazy.
Character, no, that character of that woman who works in the hospice who explains the stages of death.
Mm-hmm.
I've got goosebumps everywhere just thinking about it. Like,
Yeah,
it was stunning.
it was phenomenal. No one talks about it enough. I could go on a rant.
Not nearly
In fact,
enough.
I think we should rewatch. Because
Yeah,
I watched it.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to do a rewatch.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen immediately. I'm watching Call the Midwife now, but I'm like, no, 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 enough. Done. Okay.
I signed with a screenwriting agent last year,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "What are your dream goals?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I want to be nominated for an Oscar. I'm going to win a BAFTA because that's my ambition.
Yeah.
I want to write these kind of works, and I love these kind of things." And then I was like, oh, and another one of my dreams is I need to write an episode of Call the Midwife. And he was like, "You what?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"I want to write an episode of Call the Midwife." And he was like, "That is so random compared to everything else you've just said." But I was like, "That is it the first time you've seen it?"
Yes. This
Are you watching from like season 1 all the way through?
Yes. I am I think Jenny's leaving. I think it's the last episode of season 3. She said she wants to go and work in hospice care. And I think she's about to go, which kind of sucks because I like Jenny a lot. But okay, I guess she needs to live her life.
Yeah. I had a very different experience. I was watching it live on a Sunday. Sundays? It all on a Sunday, like growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. No, I'm locked in. I'm locked in. These stories are so. This is so funny because other people I'm telling I'm watching this show, they were like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Wait, there's like 12 seasons. I think it's popular." My friends don't know what it is.
No.
So
I cry at every single episode without fail.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure if this will change as the show goes on. I'm sure it will. But some episodes they wrap up really pretty and I'm like, you could have tussled a bit more.
Yeah, that's called The Midwife. It's BBC Sunday slot. Is it pretty? It's quite twee. I think that's why my agent was surprised. He was like, "You call The Midwife?"
Okay, so they continue with the making it. They wrap it up.
Every episode is basically the same for 12 seasons.
Interesting.
They have a formula. They have a formula, and then they cycle characters, come in and out and in and out, different midwives. Some people have been there the whole time.
Okay. I hope Chummy stays. I love Chummy.
Miranda.
Oh, fuck.
Is it Miranda? No.
Camilla.
Yeah, no, sorry. This is very British of me again. The woman who plays Chummy is a very famous British comedian called Miranda. And she had a sitcom called Miranda. So that's why
I'm like, no, Camilla.
No, you're right.
Is it showing them American?
No, but it's showing that I'm being very British is what it is.
Great. Love it. Okay, this is great. So I'm going to talk to you about Call the Midwife. Look for my DMs. And when we rewatch Dying for Sex, it's going to be great.
Okay, great. I love it. There's so many crossover.
So many. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Yes, this has been so lovely. Your questions were so insightful and it was so nice to like have a conversation. And also thank you for your openness in grappling with your questions.
Thank you.
That's a really different, really nice experience to like meet someone who's open to like wrestle with it all. I don't know. It's great.
I find that I wrestle with myself a lot and maybe that's anxiety, but I'm also like, I'm going to show that when I have a thought, I probably will not agree with that thought tomorrow, an hour from now, 2 hours from now. But the fact that I had the thought initially deserves a conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
absolutely.
So thanks for following me down the rabbit hole of my anxiety. Great. Right.
You're so welcome.
Thanks.
I mean, you read a whole book of my processing, so
That's true. Oh, I love that. Well, yay. Look at us. Start of a great friendship.
it is.
All right. Charlotte, thanks so much for coming on this episode of Carried Away the Conversation. We hope to see you back. And by we, I mean me. And maybe these people.
I would love to. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right.
Bye,
Dreamers.
Hi, Dreamers. Hope you enjoyed that episode of Carried Away the Conversation. I know I did. Be sure to follow us over on Instagram at The Carried Away with 2 Ys for all the latest updates on what we have going on over here. To find us further, we have a YouTube, which our episodes will be uploaded on. Of course, Spotify and Apple Music, where you can listen to these podcasts. And yeah, I'll see you probably next Monday with another episode of Carried Away the Conversation. Bye!